Welcome to the Game Changers. My name is Gareth Moss. I'm the founder of The Blueprint. We place inclusive and progressive leaders to drive transformation for our clients. In today's installment of Game Changers, I would like to welcome Sam Hawkey. Sam started his career at digital creative shop Glue. A couple of years later, moving on to Saatchi's, 6 promotions in 10 years during his time there, worked his way all the way up to chief executive. He now finds himself as the new CEO of the world's most creative agency, according to Cannes, AMV BBDO, coming live from Sam's son's bedroom. Sam, how are you doing?
Yeah, hanging in there. I should just say before we start, though, the reason I'm in sort of
my
son's bedroom.
The background.
I think I might be the first of these that has actually got COVID, which I'm not sure is the first that I wanted. But so that's the reason I'm surrounded by Avengers and Lego and Harry Potter books.
Excellent. Well, we're keeping it real anyway. I think the theme of COVID this last 18 months is just grabbing a laptop and working from anywhere, isn't it? So throughout your career, you know, this is only the 3rd agency you've ever been at. As I mentioned, the tender age of 34 as well. Like, what is it that maybe people can learn from about yourself, about what really inspires those decisions throughout your career, Sam?
I think there's one thing that inspires them. I think the first part is finding people who you can trust and really work for and who inspire you. I've been super lucky throughout the whole of my career, whether it be people like Johnny Spindler or Magnus Jabber, who are people who have always given me the freedom to go and try stuff. And I think that the people that you work for and finding your people was probably the biggest defining factor of the last 10, 12 years. I think the main thing, though, is those people always allowed me to challenge accepted wisdoms. So what are the things that we can kind of take and break and bend and change, and people that kind of allow you to fail? I mean, there's a long list of people who have allowed my failures over the years and supported me when that's happened. And when you get that type of environment where you're encouraged to be entrepreneurial, go and break and bend things, and then actually backed when it doesn't quite go the way that it should, and just asked to learn from that and go and be better, that's probably the defining characteristics of the people I've found in this business and what I've done to date, which is a mixture of luck and work ethic, probably.
Because they must have really trusted you at Saatchi and such, because it was known as more of a traditional advertising business, and you went in there and you helped to unlock kind of digital innovation opportunities, and you know, you had this meteoric rise really within the business. So they kind of let you off the lead kind of thing. They really let you kind of show what you could do, and obviously you've been instrumental in that change at the agency.
Well, I think you've got, and this is probably for kind of young people in the industry, is you've got to be able to look at things and go, are they being done in the best way?
Yeah,
it's kind of, if you have that kind of mentality, and I used to talk about, and I'm built a certain way, but I talked about betting on my ability. I bet that if I think that something can be done better, that I can make it happen that way, and then it will become the way that we do it. And like I said, you've got to have people around you that support you in doing that. But I think that's been kind of the defining thing in the journey, is just go and do it. If, in particular in agencies, you've got to let young people and different people coming into the business some license and some leash, as you said, to go and do it in a different way. Don't expect them to get it right first time. And I've already in AMV, one of the things I've been most kind of buoyed by is lots of people going, I've always thought we should do it like this, and I think we can change this, and I think we can break this, and we can restructure this. And you kind of go, they're very up for the change. And you've got, as my role is to create that environment where people want to do it and actually go and do it in the end. So I think that's probably where I'd say the focus has been.
So is that the kind of the culture you're going to instill at AMV then? A kind of, I know it's collaborative anyway at AMV, but a collaborative, inclusive, supportive, where people can raise their heads above the parapet and, you know, really give their kind of perspective on the business and how to improve it.
I think with AMV, the interesting thing is, I don't think it's something I need to bring to it. I think it's already there. I think it's just giving it some fire, because of everyone I've met, the defining word I would say is entrepreneurial. Is go and let that spirit kind of be free in the agency and go and make stuff happen. And they've got so much of it in them. They just happen to be very nice, very humble. I mean, actually, one of the account managers that I saw when I was chatting to them before I came in, he said, because we're kind of sort of maybe we're one of the, if I can say this, one of the more creative agencies in the world. And you go, no, we're not. We're the most creative agency on the planet, let alone 4 and 5 of our winning campaigns also won Effectiveness Awards. We also won a D&AD Yellow Pencil for data. It's Raj, who's the head of insight at AMV saved his dad's life with the skills that he uses every day. I mean, like,
Wow.
the amount of that in AMV is it's just using that energy in those headlines to create that entrepreneurialism and create that hustle, because you've got everything there. So I think it's less building that culture, because AMV's got a wonderful culture of kind of niceness and decency and warmth and collaboration and caring. It's just putting a bit of fire in that entrepreneurial spirit and letting them go at it.
Okay. And then in terms of your own career as well, you know, obviously being signed by AMV, the chief executive, you know, is that your proudest moment throughout your career, or what would you deem as being the moment within your career where you really look back at with pride?
I suppose the two defining ones, actually, becoming MD of Saatchi was a big moment when you move from being part of the agency to the leadership of the agency. And not a lot of people talk about that transition from moving from, you know, whether you're a creative or an account person or data, whatever it might be, and moving into a leadership. It's probably the hardest 6 months I had in my career. I remember sitting on the end of the bed when I got, after I got that job, and sort of half in tears going to my wife, I'm not sure I can do this job. And mainly because the amount of information and new parts to your job that kind of come to the fore is kind of mind blowing. And it takes you some time to realize what's important, the impact that you've got to have, and what your people and clients and the kind of wider industry care about. Probably coming out of that part was one of my proudest moments, and then really starting to try and get Saatchi to be a kind of more empathetic organization. And then moving into, I mean, becoming the CEO of AMV, it's something that you can't take too lightly because of the history of that agency and what it means both in its size and scale, but importantly, what it means creatively. And so I'm incredibly proud of all the work that went into the kind of first 12, 15 years of my career into being able to take a job like that at the age that I am, and have everyone in AMV go, we really want you to succeed and we're going to get behind you. And you already feel that in the agency. So I think probably that moment of coming out of the MD part and then getting a gig like this, I mean, I'm not sure there's a better job in, well, global marketing, let alone advertising, than the CEO of AMV.
And on that as well, you mentioned about, you know, at Saatchi's and becoming the managing director, and obviously the kind of learning that you took from that as well. Would you say you're going to approach it any differently at AMV than you did at Saatchi's from those learnings and the kind of the different type of an agency, or is it just the same approach and style that you'll have in the new role?
I spent a bit of time in my career sort of pretending to be something not wholly that I wasn't, kind of personality wise, where you try and be a certain way. And I always describe myself as 50% of me is, this is life and death, and I take it really seriously. The other 50% is I'm a bit of a clown, and I think this should be fun and a bit of a laugh, and what we do isn't life and death. And it's the mix of those that has always made our industry really interesting. So I think a lot of the things I've learned, 100% I will take into the AMV role and have already started to do. I think the thing you've got to be careful of, though, is cultures are different and cultures matter more than anything else. And so you just got to be careful around that particular side to it. But I tend to I'll bring myself 100%, so that whatever, you know, people do or don't think of me, they go, he is genuine and authentic. Because I think if you do that, one, if they don't like it, they don't like it. But if they do, they really buy into the way that you are and what you're trying to do. So, and it matters to me because, you know, when you start having kids, I've got a son and a daughter, and, you know, what you really want them to do is be themselves every day. And I think as an industry, we don't teach that well. We teach you to be a certain way. And I want AMV to have a louder and prouder personality for sure, because there's some wonderful people and characters in there, and the industry deserves to hear more of them, even though some of them are more introverted, for example. So I think, I think the cultural piece is the bit I'm probably staring at the most.
Right. Okay. Interesting. And also, you know, you'd mentioned before about, you know, the account manager who kind of said, you know, maybe they're one of the top creative agencies, you know, and I think it's about being bold, isn't it? As you said, you know, AMV are the world's most creative agency. However, it has been a bumpy ride, should we say, for an outsider looking in at AMV, you know, creatively, you know, on top, but, you know, sometimes having lost clients or commercially, you know, not the number one agency anymore. So as you, you know, set your own agenda at AMV, what are the three key objectives or areas that you're going to focus on for AMV to really restore it to the top of the pile?
I think the first thing that's important is, yes, they won what I call internally the Triple Crown, the kind of One Show, Cannes, and D&AD Global Agency of the Year. And everyone lauds it for its creative firepower, which it should. The other thing that gets missed a little bit, though, is how effective the work is.
Yeah.
And so, like I said earlier, there's lots of in the kind of rhetoric in the ether and reports of 1 in 5 Cannes winning campaigns this year also won effectiveness awards, and 4 in 5 AMV Cannes winning campaigns also won effectiveness awards. They've got some effectiveness awards and stories that are unlike anywhere else I've ever seen. And I think it's really important as us as an industry that believe creativity, which we know is the second biggest driver of effectiveness, that we're living that and breathing that and telling that story. And I think that's probably the part of, you know, if you talk to Alex Grieve, one of the things I like about him is he's won more creative awards than anyone ever, pretty much, in 1 year. And he wants to make sure we're telling the effectiveness story of the work that he produces, because otherwise, you know, what's the point? A little bit. And so I think that's the other part of AMV is a double-sided part to that award story. And we need to make sure we're telling the market and clients the other side of it. If us as an industry stop kind of staring at ourselves a little bit and think about clients for a minute, you go, they are struggling with lots of complexity, whether that is purpose, creative, production, media, platforms, affiliates, whatever it might be. There is a broad list of things that they're going, I've got to tackle all of these things. And within each of those things, there's many, many different layers and things that I've got. So complexity is massive for clients at the moment. The second part is risk. They need this stuff to work immediately. The kind of pressure to get immediate ROI is probably never higher than it's been. So the risk of stuff not working, again, we've got to make sure they're super comfortable that the things we're putting in front of them have got the best chance to succeed. Also time. I mean, we've lost people in our industry for sure. So have the other side, so have the clients. And so they're under more time pressure than ever. And then you look at something like budgets. Budgets are also under strain. And the final one is probably they want to work with some people. It's been hard and work shouldn't feel this hard. And therefore working with some people who are nice, collaborative, decent people to work with has now become more important than ever. You know, advertising agencies who are a pain in the ass to work with, it doesn't have to be done like that. And I think that's starting to become clear. And so when you think about those things, you go, it's our job then to be focused on simplicity, potency, decency, and excellence. And what I mean by those is simplicity is we've always been good as agencies as taking big business problems or brand problems or communications problems and distilling them into a simple answer. So it's kind of what we've always done. The difference now is we've got more technology, more data, more platforms to make that true for the modern world. And we've got to be the ones to navigate that and then give simple solutions to clients. And I've talked to a couple of CMOs and one in particular who I won't name, but you know, he talked about the need for simpler, fewer, bigger, better decisions. And that links to potency, which is the work that we're putting out needs to be potent, and creativity is pretty much the only way to make something as potent as possible. I don't think any client is sitting there, and I think this is where we as an industry try to do the be brave and be bold client. Like they know that, but we have to give them comfort and we have to give them the data and the insight to allow them to take that risk. And I think we're not good enough at that. And I talked to the guys at AMV about that moment when you present creative and the client goes, you know, what's your preferred route? And someone goes, well, I like route 1 and I like route 2. And yet that's not, we need to move past that. We need to start taking creative accountability and going, we've tested this work. We've looked at it through different lenses, qualitative, quantitatively, and we understand that this work is right. So you can have the freedom to really push it creatively, client. Client then knows that we've taken accountability for it and they've got the confidence in which to really push it. And then you get the more kind of potent outcomes from it. Yeah. And I think that's the key, that simplicity and potency. Decency for me is the kind of, it's a kind of, I believe in fairness and I think that people should treat each other a certain way. And I think one of the amazing things about one of the clients that I've worked with to date in a previous life and the ones I've met in AMV, they very much have that at the core. And they really respect that from an AMV point of view, in particular as to the culture they've built and the type type of people we've got in the agency, and also, you know, how we treat each other on a day-to-day level and what partnership means.
Yeah.
Which, you know, that doesn't happen as often as it used to, maybe, but you certainly get a lot of that at AMV. And the final one, excellence, is I sort of think that's excellence in your specialism and finding the best people to do the job in the best way to get the best possible outcome.
Yeah.
It's sort of been lost a bit. And we've got these kind of amorphous blobs of teams that are generalists, and it's easy to deal with, but isn't necessarily going to get you the simplest and most potent way of approaching the work. And so I think making sure that when we think about whatever it might be in technology or craft, is that we're using the best people to get the best outcomes for that business. And if you went through that in 2022 and went, look, I'm going to try and simplify things to the things that matter, make sure the decisions and the way that I'm approaching it's going to be the most potent it can be. I'm going to be really good to people, be decent and treat them with respect, and I'm going to pick the best people to do it. I think you've got a fighting chance of being really successful. And that's why I think those 4 things are probably the focus. And like I said, starting from a client point of view.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. Brilliant answer. Thank you so much, Sam. And as I kind of touched on, you know, you've had this rise at such a, you know, you're probably not even halfway through your career right now. You must be inspired by people. And I think, you know, earlier you mentioned a couple of people that have kind of helped to mentor you through your career as well. But is there any kind of person out there that really kind of inspires you, and what have you taken from their philosophy?
The person I saw talk at a Wackle event actually was Carolyn McCall from ITV,
yeah.
And previously of EasyJet. And the thing that struck me about her was one, and I haven't worked for her, so I can't test that, but one was just her whole demeanor, her energy and her vibe was incredibly positive.
Yeah.
And I was, you know, I met her after, but emanated a positivity to, you kind of felt like I would follow you, even though I don't know you that well.
Yeah.
But interestingly, the other thing that struck me about her was the amount of things she is involved in. You know, I often sit there and go, busy today. And if you look at, you know, some of the achievements and things that Karen McCall is involved in, you realize how much capacity someone has in order to work and change things. And also she's kind of very involved in lots of things, in particular in pushing kind of the women in work agenda and making sure that is one, fairer, and also kind of really championing and pushing them up through different organizations. And so she's having a real effect on areas that really matter. And so I've always felt like whenever I'm feeling a bit kind of like I've got too much on, just try and have a little look at what Karen McCall's doing. But the other side of it is sports people in general. I'm a sucker for a sports documentary or anyone who's got that kind of inspirational story. And I think I actually went to an event recently, and they had Laura Kenny, the 5-time Olympic champion, talk to us. And what the interesting thing I loved about her was, you have never met a more lovely, warm,
humble.
I mean, honestly, she was just so refreshing.
Yeah.
And she actually led a spin class within which about 15 minutes I nearly died. But she, and then you saw her talk about her training and how much she loves getting on the bike. And I think it reminded me of, you know, people have got a lot of negative things to say about our industry a lot of the time. And I still, to use her analogy, get back on the bike every day and go, I love it. I love being in it. I love working with clients. I love being around the work, and I love our business. And the other thing she said, which I loved, was, you know, this smiling, lovely, warm. And then she said, and when I get on the bike, I'm a killer. She went, I want to win at all costs. Yeah. And it kind of struck me with her that ability to be decent and nice and lovely and still want it more than anyone else.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what, if you talked about AMV earlier, they are one of the loveliest, nicest, most brilliant agencies you will ever meet. And they're going to want it more than ever. And they're going to want it more than others. And the idea that those things are not mutually exclusive. And so it's those types of stories that I like around mixing. You know, you don't have to be this sort of stereotypically ad man, alpha, sort of overly aggressive. You know, there are other ways to do things and be at the absolute top, and by top, 5-time Olympic gold medalist top of your game. So I take a lot of inspiration from those types of things.
Like, what would you say, I suppose, are the key kind of values, or what do you look for, when you're hiring a game changer? What's kind of top of the list for you, Sam?
Two things. One is positive mental attitude. Mm-hmm. So my mum always said to me, if you've got positive mental attitude, you'll get 10% more out of yourself and those around you. So that matters to me, that someone comes in, I'm quite into energy. I probably used that word about 10 times in this interview, but I like good energy. Yeah. It's one of the reasons when I met you, I got on with you, is there's a positive energy and a momentum about, and if you find those people, they're worth 3 people, because they can take people along with them, because people go, they seem like they're going places. And by the way, they've got that positivity about them. I think that's the first thing, is you'll get it in an instant when you sit on the phone with someone. Sit on the phone, they light it up and you go, I'm feeling it already. We've got a woman called Katie Talakowska in AMV, and I met her on Zoom. And the first minute she opened her mouth, I went, she's got that energy and that vibe. Carmen is another one.
Yeah.
And that's when in AMV I keep finding those people, and that's what gives me energy. I think the biggest thing, though, in terms of someone you want to come in and be a game changer, is finding the accepted wisdoms. Who are the people that are going to come in and go, that's not right, or that could be done better, and I'm going to change it? Not a kind of, I'm going to start asking for permission and there's a politics thing. Is they go right at that thing and decide that they're going to change it because they know that they can do it better. And by the way, all organizations will already have some of those people in there, and you just got to sometimes just flip the switch in them to get them to go and do it. But I think you've got to really believe someone can come in with a positive energy, and they're looking at things and going, I'm coming in here to make a difference and make a change. And I can see them, spot them, and make them happen. If I use the word energy a lot, everyone from AMV has heard the phrase accepted wisdom a million times, because they're everywhere. So I think positive mental attitude and people who love to find and accept wisdom and snap it in half.
And on that as well, in terms of driving change, within our industry as a whole, and this is something that I always ask our game changers, we talk about diversity. We have made some strides forward. We're still behind where we'd like to be in terms of the creative industry. If you're in charge of the creative industry and there's just one thing that you could implement in order to address it, like, what would that number one thing be?
When it comes to this question, I think the biggest issue that we have is that people tend to do things that play lip service and tick a box, and then they try and do loads of those things. And so when asked in an RFI or by a client, what do you do? Oh, we're on this and we do this and we're on this charter and this board. And I think the biggest issue is that is all good, but you need to find something where you can actually make a kind of a deep impact on that thing. And largely, lots of people concentrate, and rightly so, as to bringing in more talent into our businesses from a more diverse range of places. And by the way, there's lots of organizations that can help you do that. So any agency that isn't doing that, that's just laziness, because there are lots of places you can go to find that talent. Absolutely. Now, by the way, have we got to do more and go and find more? 100%. But you can start that journey now in terms of funneling in the right amount of people. In the same way as you've been doing a lot of this work already, is finding recruiters and partners who are going to look further afield and in different places to find you talent, more diverse talent. Again, that's not a difficult thing for an agency to do. The real difficult things for agencies to do is to create an environment whereby when that type of talent comes into an organization, that it will stay there and they thrive. And I think when you say, as the creative industry, what could they do? I don't think blanket rules are going to help. And I think it's a competitive advantage. I think it is those that want to make an actual difference. Because like I said before, some of the stuff I did in my previous role is, I don't just want to do it because it's the right thing to do. That is 100% one of the reasons. The other reason is it's proven that you will grow commercially, the work will get better, and you will have a better internal culture. And therefore it's a bit of a no-brainer. So I think the focus for me, outside of the things that are easier to do, which we will still do, is how do you ensure that when you get those people, they are able to come through the organization. Yeah. And that is about mentoring, and that is about making sure that they've got the best possible coaching and advice to navigate a system that maybe wasn't designed for them.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, and on that note, thank you, Sam, for being a game changer. I'm excited to see the adventure ahead at AMV. and look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thank you very much. And apologies for the cold and the COVID. I will hope to be out of isolation very soon.
Excellent. I look forward to seeing you not in your son's bedroom next time.
Well, yeah. You can come build Lego with me.
Cheers, Sam. Take care. All the best.